And killed a young mother in the family driveway. It happened on Kelly Chapel Road. Raesha Heard's family tells Fox 5 her 8-year-old son watched it happen.
It was a typical Wednesday afternoon in DeKalb County, Georgia. October 11th, 2023. The autumn sun cast long shadows across the driveway of a family home as Raesha Danielle Heard pulled into her parents' driveway. A vibrant mother of 2 boys, Raesha was known by friends as the life of the party. She popped the trunk of her car, revealing bags of groceries, everyday items for her family. The mundane task of unloading groceries, something we all do without thought. She reached for the first bag, unaware that these ordinary moments would be her last. Someone was watching, waiting for this exact moment. As Raesha lifted the grocery bags from her trunk, her 8-year-old son stood nearby, perhaps eager to help his mother carry the lighter items into the house. Without warning, a figure approached from behind. Multiple gunshots shattered the quiet afternoon. Raesha collapsed beside her car, her life violently cut short in her parents' driveway. The most devastating aspect of this tragedy wasn't just the brutal murder of a young mother. It was that her child witnessed everything. The boy who should have been protected from life's horrors instead saw his mother's final moments in the most traumatic way imaginable. As Raesha's friend Kenya Cuffey later told reporters, "Words can't explain how bad it hurts. For them to have had to witness that, it is just unexplainable." In an instant, 2 young boys lost their mother, parents lost their daughter, and community lost a beloved member, all while the perpetrators simply walked away, leaving behind devastation that would ripple through generations. In the days following the murder, as Raesha's family struggled with overwhelming grief, the suspected killer added another layer of cruelty to their suffering. While police had identified a suspect, believed to be Raesha's ex-boyfriend, no arrest had been made. Meanwhile, this individual took to social media, posting content that friends described as taunting the grieving family. He flaunted his freedom online, seemingly untouchable despite the horror he had allegedly committed. He's still out there. Raesha's friend Nia Boykin told local media 6 days after the shooting, her voice heavy with frustration and fear. The digital mockery compounded the family's anguish as they waited for justice. "I need you to stay with me through this entire story. Not just because Raesha deserves to have her story told, but because understanding what happened here could save lives. The warning signs, the missed opportunities for intervention, these details matter. Your attention today might help prevent tomorrow's tragedy." Keep watching. Throughout this video, we'll examine the relationship dynamics that preceded this murder, identifying critical warning signs that friends and family might recognize in their own lives or the lives of loved ones. You'll learn about protection orders, when to get them, and how effective they truly are. We'll discuss practical safety planning for those attempting to leave dangerous relationships, and the resources available in communities across the country. Most importantly, you'll understand how to support someone you suspect is being abused without putting them at greater risk. Knowledge is power, and in situations of domestic violence, it can be the difference between life and death. Raesha Danielle Heard was more than just a victim. She was a vibrant soul who lit up rooms with her presence. Friends consistently described her as the life of the party, a woman whose laughter and energy were contagious. But beyond her social nature, Raesha's identity was deeply rooted in motherhood. Her 2 boys, aged 12 and 8 at the time of her death, were the center of her universe. Those who knew her spoke of her dedication to creating a stable, loving environment for her children despite life's challenges. She worked hard to provide for them, ensuring they had not just necessities, but also moments of joy. Grocery shopping on that fateful day was just another act of maternal care, a routine errand in service of her family. The boys were growing up with a mother who modeled resilience and warmth, qualities they would need to draw upon in the aftermath of unimaginable loss. Raesha's parenting wasn't just about raising children. It was about building future men. Tragedy had already carved deep wounds into the Heard family before Raesha's murder. Just 1 year earlier, in 2022, her younger brother Romello Heard was killed at only 15 years old, another victim of gun violence in their community. This earlier loss had already tested the family's resilience and faith, forcing them to navigate the complex terrain of grief while continuing to function in daily life. The parallels between the siblings' deaths, Both young lives cut short by gun violence highlight a devastating pattern affecting too many families. For Raesha's parents, the unthinkable happened twice, burying two of their children within 2 years. The family had barely begun processing Romello's death when they were thrust into another nightmare. This context of compounded grief makes the aftermath of Raesha's murder even more heart-wrenching. Her parents now faced not only their own overwhelming sorrow, but also the responsibility of raising two traumatized grandsons who had witnessed their mother's murder. Raesha's roots in DeKalb County ran deep, with a network of friends and neighbors who valued her authentic spirit. In the days following her death, this community mobilized, speaking to media, creating fundraisers for her children, and demanding justice. Their quick response revealed the strength of bonds Raesha had formed throughout her life. Kenya Cuffey and Nia Boykin were among the friends who became impromptu advocates, using their voices when Raesha no longer could. Their willingness to speak publicly demonstrated not just friendship, but courage in a situation where the killer remained at large. The GoFundMe campaign organized for Raesha's family showed how her connections extended beyond her immediate circle, touching people who recognized the injustice of her death. While public records don't detail the full history between Raesha and her alleged killer, described as her ex-boyfriend, domestic violence experts recognize familiar patterns in this case. Relationships that end in homicide typically show escalating control behaviors long before physical violence occurs. The fact that the attack happened at her parents' home suggests she may have been trying to maintain distance, a common safety strategy for those leaving dangerous relationships. The killer's choice to attack in broad daylight in front of her child indicates a disturbing need for dominance and public demonstration of power. Most domestic homicides occur during or after separation, the most dangerous time for victims, when abusers feel their control slipping away and resort to lethal violence to reassert it. Wednesday, October 11th, 2023 began as an ordinary autumn day in DeKalb County, Georgia. The weather records show mild temperatures, typical for October in the Atlanta area. For Raesha Heard, it was a day of routine responsibilities. She had gone grocery shopping, perhaps planning meals for her two boys for the coming days. Around mid-afternoon, Raesha pulled into her parents' driveway. This choice of location is significant. Many domestic violence victims seek safety at family homes, believing the presence of others provides protection. She parked her car and popped the trunk to unload the groceries she'd purchased. Her 8-year-old son was with her, possibly having accompanied her on the shopping trip, or perhaps having spent the day at his grandparents' home. As Raesha reached into the trunk to retrieve the bags, surveillance footage from nearby homes would later show a figure approaching on foot. The person moved with purpose, directly toward Raesha's position at the rear of her vehicle. Without hesitation or warning, the attacker drew a handgun and fired multiple shots at close range. Neighbors reported hearing between 4 and 6 gunshots in rapid succession. The time between the perpetrator's arrival and departure was less than 60 seconds.
When the deadly shooting occurred, DeKalb police say they have identified the suspect, but they are not yet ready to release his name.
He's doing a lot on his Instagram.
He's tempting this. He's tempting the family.
Yeah, he wants to go viral from this. So, yes, we know who it is.
A brief, violent interruption that permanently altered the lives of everyone connected to Raesha. The killer fled the scene immediately, leaving Raesha mortally wounded in the driveway as her young son watched in horror. The crime scene told a story of calculated brutality. Multiple shell casings littered the concrete driveway around Raesha's vehicle. The positioning suggested the shooter had stood directly behind her, firing at point-blank range, a common tactic in intimate partner homicides, reflecting both the personal nature of the crime and the killer's determination to ensure fatal results. Neighbors who heard the gunshots emerged from their homes to find Raesha's 8-year-old son screaming beside his mother's body. One neighbor, who asked not to be identified, described the boy as completely hysterical, covered in his mother's blood. Another witness reported seeing a man walking briskly away from the scene, getting into a dark-colored sedan parked around the corner. The most devastating witness was, of course, Raesha's young son. His account, given through child advocacy specialists, provided crucial details about the shooter's appearance and actions, details that would later help investigators identify their primary suspect, despite the child's traumatized state. DeKalb County Police responded within minutes of the 911 calls, securing the scene with yellow crime scene tape that stretched across the normally quiet residential street. Paramedics attempted life-saving measures, but Raesha was pronounced dead at the scene. Multiple gunshot wounds to her torso, leaving no chance for survival. Detectives immediately began canvassing the neighborhood, collecting statements from witnesses and securing video footage from home security systems. The evidence collection team meticulously documented the scene, photographing and collecting the shell casings, which would later be entered into the National Ballistics Database to determine if the weapon had been used in other crimes. Within 24 hours, investigators had developed a person of interest based on witness descriptions, the child's testimony, and Raesha's known history. However, they faced a critical challenge: locating the suspect. Despite identifying him relatively quickly, police did not immediately release his name to the public, a decision that would later fuel the family's frustration as days passed without an arrest. The news reached Raesha's parents in the most devastating way possible, arriving home to find their daughter dead in their driveway and their grandson traumatized. Their home, meant to be a sanctuary, had become a murder scene. In the hours that followed, they faced impossible tasks, comforting their grandsons while processing their own shock, speaking with detectives while arranging for Raesha's body, and notifying extended family of yet another tragic loss. They're completely shattered. A family spokesperson told local media, "To lose a second child to gun violence, there are no words." The family quickly organized counseling for the children, particularly the younger boy who witnessed the murder, while simultaneously pressing police for swift action against the person they believed responsible. While police initially withheld the suspect's name from the public, investigation records later identified him as Raesha's former boyfriend, a local aspiring hip-hop artist who performed under a stage name at Atlanta area clubs. His social media profiles portrayed the carefully curated image of success: designer clothes, flashy jewelry, and poses with rented luxury cars, creating an illusion of wealth that contrasted with his actual financial situation. Friends of Raesha described him as intensely jealous and possessive during their relationship. He had cultivated a public persona centered on hypermasculinity and dominance, with lyrics that often glorified violence against those who disrespected him. His music videos, viewed mostly by local followers, featured guns as props and contained thinly veiled threats toward unnamed former partners. Behind this manufactured image was a 29-year-old man with a spotty employment history, multiple failed relationships, and mounting frustrations about his stalled music career. His criminal record showed previous arrests for misdemeanor offenses, including possession of marijuana and driving with a suspended license. In the months before Raesha's murder, those close to her had noticed troubling patterns in her ex-boyfriend's behavior. After their breakup approximately 6 months earlier, he had begun showing up uninvited at places Raesha frequented. Text messages recovered from her phone revealed escalating hostility, with messages alternating between declarations of love and explicit threats. 2 months before the murder, Raesha had confided in a co-worker that she was considering a restraining order after finding her car tires slashed in the employee parking lot. Security footage from that incident was too grainy to identify the perpetrator conclusively, but the timing aligned with an angry text exchange between Raesha and her ex. Most concerning was an incident 3 weeks before the murder when he confronted Raesha and a male friend at a restaurant, creating a scene that required security intervention. This public display of possessiveness, treating Raesha as property rather than a person with autonomy, represented a significant escalation that tragically went unreported to authorities. In the days following Raesha's murder, while police worked to locate him, the suspect's social media accounts remained disturbingly active. Rather than going dark or expressing any remorse, he posted a series of cryptic messages that Raesha's friends interpreted as taunting references to the killing. One post featured a video of him counting cash with the caption, "Problem solved," posted just hours after the murder. Another showed him partying at a nightclub the very evening of the day Raesha was killed. Perhaps most disturbing was a post 2 days after the murder featuring a song with lyrics about consequences for those who cross him. These posts served dual purposes: intimidating potential witnesses while flaunting his perceived immunity from consequences. Each new post intensified the family's anguish and public outrage. Screenshots of these posts were forwarded to investigators, providing additional evidence of his state of mind and potential consciousness of guilt. The digital breadcrumbs he left became part of the mounting evidence against him. I want you to pause for a moment and consider. What would you do if you noticed these warning signs in someone you know? Would you recognize the danger? Would you speak up? Your awareness and willingness to act could save someone's life. Comment below with what action you take. Your insight might help others in similar situations. The investigation into Raesha's murder began immediately on October 11th, 2023, with DeKalb County detectives processing the crime scene until well after midnight. By the following morning, they had collected surveillance footage from 3 neighboring homes and interviewed 8 witnesses, including Raesha's traumatized 8-year-old son, through specialized child forensic interviewers. By October 13th, investigators had officially identified their primary suspect, but made the tactical decision not to publicly release his name while they worked to locate him. Search warrants were executed at 2 addresses associated with the suspect on October 14th, but he wasn't found at either location. On October 17th, 6 days after the murder, police finally issued a public wanted notice with the suspect's name and photo. The breakthrough came on October 19th, when an anonymous tip led officers to a motel just outside Atlanta city limits. After a 3-hour standoff, the suspect surrendered and was taken into custody without further incident. The murder weapon was recovered from the motel room, providing crucial ballistic evidence linking him directly to the crime. Investigators encountered several significant obstacles during the manhunt. The suspect had abandoned his primary phone, making electronic tracking difficult, and was using cash only to avoid credit card traces. He relied on a network of friends for transportation and temporary housing, some of whom later faced charges for harboring a fugitive. The investigation was further complicated by witnesses who initially refused to cooperate out of fear, having seen the suspect's threatening social media posts. Detectives also struggled with limited resources. The department was simultaneously handling 3 other homicide investigations that week, stretching their specialized personnel thin and delaying certain forensic analyses that might have accelerated the case. As days passed without an arrest, Raesha's family and friends grew increasingly distressed. Their anguish was compounded by seeing the suspect's continued social media activity, a painful reminder that he remained free while Raesha was gone forever. By day 6, their patience had reached its breaking point. I am upset because it's day 6, and the person who did this is still not caught. He's still out there, Nia Boykin told local news cameras, her voice breaking with emotion. The family began organizing their own search efforts, distributing flyers with the suspect's image throughout Atlanta neighborhoods where they believed he might be hiding. Their frustration with law enforcement was publicly expressed during a candlelight vigil held on October 16th, where Raesha's father questioned why police hadn't released the suspect's name and photo sooner. "Everyone knows who did this. His name should be everywhere," he told the gathered crowd of nearly 200 supporters. The following day, police finally issued the public wanted notice, though they maintained their timing was based on investigative strategy rather than public pressure. Following his arrest, the suspect was charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and cruelty to children. He was denied bail at his initial court appearance on October 21st. The district attorney's office pursued the case aggressively, citing the premeditated nature of the crime and the suspect's behavior afterward as particularly aggravating factors. In February 2024, facing overwhelming evidence, he accepted a plea deal of life imprisonment without possibility of parole, sparing Raesha's family the trauma of a trial while ensuring he would never walk free again. The conviction brought a measure of justice, though nothing could truly heal the wound left by Raesha's absence. The psychological impact on Raesha's sons, particularly her 8-year-old who witnessed the murder, has been profound and far-reaching. In the immediate aftermath, the younger boy experienced severe symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, nightmares, flashbacks, and periods of emotional shutdown that concerned mental health professionals. He refused to sleep alone and became visibly distressed by loud noises, especially car doors slamming. The 12-year-old processed his grief differently, assuming a protective role toward his younger brother while struggling with his own anger and sense of powerlessness. School counselors noted his withdrawal from previously enjoyed activities and occasional outbursts of rage that were uncharacteristic of his previous behavior. Both children began intensive trauma-focused therapy, a process expected to continue for years. Their therapists emphasized that childhood trauma of this magnitude fundamentally alters brain development, requiring long-term intervention. The road to healing remains long and uncertain, with each boy facing the challenge of constructing an identity and future without their mother's presence and guidance. Raesha's parents, still grieving their son Romello, suddenly became primary caregivers to two traumatized grandsons. This role shift required significant adjustments. The grandmother took early retirement to provide full-time care, while the grandfather worked extra hours to compensate for the lost income and additional expenses. The family home needed physical modifications as well. The driveway where Raesha was killed was repaved, and the family eventually sold her car, unable to bear its presence. Bedrooms were rearranged to accommodate the boys, creating a space that felt safe rather than a constant reminder of their loss. Holiday traditions were gently modified to acknowledge Raesha's absence while creating new memories that honored her memory without being overwhelmed by grief. The response from the DeKalb County community revealed the depth of connection Raesha had fostered during her life. A GoFundMe campaign established for her son's care and education quickly exceeded its initial goal, raising over $30,000 in just 2 weeks. Local businesses contributed to funeral expenses, allowing the family to honor Raesha without financial strain during their time of grief. Raesha's employer held a memorial service where co-workers shared stories of her kindness and work ethic, establishing a small scholarship in her name for single mothers pursuing education. Her son's school community organized meal deliveries for months following the murder and created a buddy system to provide the boys with additional social support during school hours. Perhaps most significantly, a local domestic violence prevention organization partnered with community leaders to establish Raesha's Watch, a neighborhood-based initiative providing education about relationship violence warning signs and creating safe reporting mechanisms for concerned friends and family. Through this program, Raesha's tragic death became a catalyst for potentially life-saving community vigilance and intervention. Raesha's case highlights several critical warning signs that often precede lethal domestic violence. Possessive behavior, like the restaurant confrontation with her male friend, represents a dangerous belief that partners are property rather than autonomous individuals. This controlling behavior frequently escalates after separation, when abusers feel their control slipping away. Digital surveillance is another red flag, checking phones, demanding passwords, or tracking locations. These behaviors may seem like concern, but actually represent unhealthy monitoring and control. Isolation attempts, where abusers gradually separate victims from support networks, make it harder for victims to leave and easier to hide escalating abuse. Threats, especially those involving children or suicide, serve as powerful manipulation tools. Even seemingly minor property damage, like Raesha's slashed tires, often precedes physical violence. The presence of firearms dramatically increases lethality risk. Access to guns makes domestic violence 5 times more likely to result in homicide. Most importantly, trust your instincts. Many victims report knowing something was wrong long before obvious violence occurred. That intuition deserves respect and immediate action, not dismissal or rationalization. If you recognize these warning signs in your relationship or someone else's, numerous resources exist to provide support and safety planning. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE, operates 24 hours daily, offering confidential guidance, safety planning, and local referrals. Their website provides a quick escape button that immediately redirects to a neutral site if an abuser enters the room. Local domestic violence organizations typically offer emergency shelter, legal advocacy for protection orders, and counseling services. Many have specialized programs for children who have witnessed abuse. These services are generally free and confidential, with no requirement to leave the relationship to receive help. For immediate danger, 911 remains the appropriate call, but requesting a domestic violence specialist officer can improve response quality. Many police departments now have specialized units trained in the complexities of relationship violence. When supporting someone in an abusive relationship, avoid judgment or ultimatums. Instead, offer specific help. I can store important documents for you. Or, you can use my phone to make calls, provides concrete assistance without pressure that might increase isolation. The lethal combination of domestic violence and firearms access creates a public health crisis hiding in plain sight. Studies consistently show that domestic abusers with access to guns are 500% more likely to kill their partners than those without firearms. Despite federal laws prohibiting domestic abusers from possessing firearms, implementation gaps and enforcement challenges leave many victims vulnerable. The most dangerous period when most domestic homicides occur is during and immediately after separation. This timing aligns perfectly with Raesha's case, where the murder occurred months after the relationship ended. Effective prevention requires both stronger enforcement of existing gun prohibition laws for abusers and better protection during this high-risk separation period. Community awareness of these intersecting risks could save countless lives through earlier intervention and support. Raesha Heard's tragic story teaches us that domestic violence escalates, often turning deadly after separation. Recognition of warning signs, community support, and immediate action can save lives. Her legacy reminds us that victims are not statistics, but beloved family members whose absence creates unfillable voids across generations. If Raesha's story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs this information, and subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories. Your engagement helps spread awareness about domestic violence prevention. Comment below with resources in your community. Your knowledge might be the lifeline someone desperately needs right now.